RocSports, I'm back with another video. As you can tell by the title, this is my official prediction and breakdown for the Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford fight. Let's get right into it. So, we just finished watching the weigh-ins, and it was everything that I thought it would be. First thing first, let's get right into the press conference. I thought the press conference was dull. You know what I mean? I wish I could have seen a little bit more back and forth, even if it was Bo Mack and Kenny Porter going back and forth. I just thought that they could have did a little bit more to sell the pay-per-view. Obviously, boxing fans, us as boxing fans, that know both of these guys, we know like we don't need nothing to sell a fight for us hardcore fans. But in terms of for your casual fan, man, Shawn and Terence could have done a little bit more. It's more to it than just doing interviews. I'm not saying get out of character, but you know what I mean. It's more they could have done to that. So the press conference was a little dull for me. It was a little boring, but the weigh-in was good, man. It was intense. It was a typical Shawn Porter and a typical Terence Crawford weigh-in. Terence Crawford is always focused, locked in, game face, ready, you know, very intense at the weigh-in. And Shawn is just, he's all smiles, you know what I mean? So I felt like we got both of that from both guys. We hear Bo Mack in the back, you know, egging him on. And so it was great, man. Both guys looking phenomenal shape, great shape. I would say this, I never seen Shawn look like this. And what I mean by that is, yes, Shawn is always in tip-top shape, but the way that his body is set up, he's never been, at least to my knowledge, I never seen him be one of those fighters at the weigh-in ripped up like he have to flex or anything, you know what I mean, to so you can see his packs. I'm saying not ripped up around here. I'm just talking strictly in his stomach, his abdomen area, you know, for packs. He's not like a Terence Crawford. He's not like a Errol, a Floyd Mayweather. You know, like they always ripped up. You can count the 8-pack or 6, whatever it is, but Shawn is not that fighter. He was like that today though. Terence Crawford, again, his normal self, he looked absolutely locked in. But Shawn is one of those fighters during the weigh-ins though that he's gonna be himself. He's a smiler. That's just the type of guy he is. But I'm not worried about Shawn. I know he's gonna come ready to fight, and I know Terence is gonna become ready to fight. So that's why we have such a super fight on our hands. So let's get right into it. For me, this was my favorite fight when it was done. Over Wilder Fury, over Caleb Plant Canelo, any other big fight that it was this year, I think that this has the chance to, you know, trump that any fight if Shawn does what everybody think he, you know. But I'm gonna say this though. How do I want to say it? I don't want to say the wrong thing, but you know, don't. If I know I said last week that Canelo was pound for pound, you know, #1, blah, blah, blah. If Terence Crawford go in here and dominate, steamroll Shawn Porter, just brutally knock him out, anything. If he, just a dominant performance over Shawn Porter, Terence Crawford's #1 in my eyes. Terence, I mean, you could argue, you could put his stuff, I don't care what people talking about names. Terence Crawford fought who was put in front of him. He cleaned out 140. It's not his fault that was a bad division at that time in terms of names. He cleaned it out. He cleaned out 135. You know what I mean? We don't have to go off his resume. If he dominates Shawn Porter, he's #1 for me. But I don't know if he can dominate him. I'm picking Terence Crawford to win this fight, and I really want to pick him by stoppage. But I just got too much respect for Shawn, man, honestly. Terence Crawford is my favorite fighter. Terence Crawford and Errol Spence are my favorite fighters. It's always been like that. Well before that, it was a thought before either one of them fight each other. Those two guys has been my favorite fighters. I followed both of them pretty much their whole career very early, especially Errol, but Terence Crawford very early, since the Dread days. And so it just happens that those two, you know, that's the next super fight. But Shawn Porter, it's been a lot of talk from his team, people that's been in his camp, about his power, meaning that he's throwing with more thump now. You know, he got more thump behind his punches now. They've been saying that he went back to the basics too, like Deontay Wilder, in terms of fundamentals. He wanted to straighten up his punches. He don't want to be so wide, and you know, all of that. To me, I just don't think Shawn's a puncher, man. You know what I mean? I don't think that. Like, I think if Shawn was to hurt Terence, it would be off him being in close or to the body. I don't think it's going to be just a straight shot on the chin. I could be wrong. I don't think Shawn's going to just develop all of this power off of one camp, all of this one punch knockout power. Not even one punch knockout, just knockout power, period. Who have we seen Shawn drop? Andre Berto, and that was 2017. You know what I mean? Like, Terence Crawford is a killer, man. He's on a streak right now, a knockout streak. Shawn Porter is on a Shawn Porter's a tough fighter, man. He's gonna be in Terence. He's gonna test. This was always my favorite fight because, again, I know what Shawn brings to the table. Shawn is gonna be up in Terence's face. He's gonna make Terence earn this fight like no other fighter has. What can you say is Terence Crawford's toughest fights? Cal Velasquez, maybe. Jose Benavidez, maybe. Gamboa, obviously. But come on, man. Like, this is a different ballgame. I think Terence knows that. And that don't necessarily mean that. But what I mean by that is because not just with skills in the ring, but Shawn's determination and his mental is, if not better, is just on par with Terence Crawford. You know what I mean? Like, Shawn's a killer too in his own right. He's a dog. But I think it ultimately boils down to, I'm not going to sit up here and break down every single thing of the fight. Everybody has predictions going around. But I'm going to say this, though. I think it just boils down to simply Terence Crawford having too much in his arsenal for Shawn Porter. And I think it's going to be very similar to the fights that we've seen in the past with him. There's a chance that Shawn may get dropped in this fight. But, okay, well, let me finish this point first. We seen Shawn close with so many fighters. Some went his way, some didn't go his way. I thought he beat Keith Thurman. I did. I thought he beat Keith Thurman. I thought he lost to Errol Spence. I thought he beat Danny Garcia, and I felt like the Ugas fight could have went either way, honestly. But I thought he beat Danny. I thought he beat Keith. Keith fight was tough though. But Shawn was, all of those fights I razor thin. It was just one thing separating all those fights. The Keith fight, people were saying was the cleaner shots that edged it out for Keith for them. And the Errol fight, people were saying it was the knockdown that was the difference. But in terms of this fight, both guys have had terrific sparring. Well, Kenny Porter's point, he said that they didn't have great sparring. But in terms of the names, you can see what both guys was trying to do a little bit. But I just think that this fight is going to answer all of the questions that we need from both sides. Shawn needs that one big victory. You can argue Danny Garcia, well, Danny Garcia is his biggest win, but you can argue that Danny Garcia victory was enough for his legacy, I guess, so to say. But this is the fight that can really solidify his legacy. If Shawn was to upset Terence Crawford, man, that's huge, man. That's going to shake up boxing. I have Terence Crawford like number 2 on my pound for pound list right now behind Canelo, for sure. That's going to shake up boxing if he upset Terence Crawford. Shawn Porter, I think, is going to answer all the questions that we need from the standpoint of, when it comes to Terence Crawford, you have different sides in terms of the fans that feel for him. You have the sides that say he hasn't fought nobody, he hasn't been tested, blah, blah, blah. Shawn Porter's going to do that. He's going to be in Terence Crawford's chest. Even if Shawn was to get dropped, he's going to get back up. You know what I'm saying? He's going to get back up with that dog ready to fight. I'm going to get a mental edge, though, to Shawn Porter. In terms, not IQ in boxing, I'm saying mental edge from, like, I think Shawn will be able to keep his composure more. If so happens, say if both fighters got dropped, I feel like Shawn would be more mentally calm and stable than Terence would, due to experience. Shawn has been on big fights. He had been on fights of this magnitude. You know what I mean? He's like 4, 5, 6 fights in on this magnitude. So it's not going to be nothing new for for Shawn Porter. But I don't want Terence Crawford fighting angry. I want him being himself. Fill out Shawn Porter the first couple rounds how you usually do. If you see it open, and take it. Shawn's going to be there for openings. We know that. He don't have the best defense in boxing. He don't have the greatest of defenses. Shawn Porter's going to try to get in and out. We know that. His feints. But I just think that Terence is going to clip him, man. I don't think he's going to knock him out. I said that. I would be shocked if Terence Crawford knock out Shawn Porter. I will be. I just don't see him doing that. But I do think that he can drop Shawn Porter. I do think that he can hurt Shawn Porter. I think Shawn can hurt him. And that's why this fight is what it is for me. Yes, Shawn may not have knockout power, but I think just because of his strength, he's strong, and, all of that mental pressure, I think that he may be. I think both fighters can hurt each other. But Shawn has been susceptible to getting caught with hooks. Keith rocked him with some wide hooks, which when Broner dropped him, it was with a check left hook. When Errol dropped him, it was on the inside with a hook. Terence Crawford, man, both hands, the hooks, they coming, man. So I think that, I'm gonna say right now, I think Terence Crawford is gonna beat Shawn Porter. Is gonna be more evident his victory than any other fighter, any other loss that Shawn Porter has. I think he's gonna beat him more clear than Errol Spence, more clear than Keith Thurman, and and more clear than even Kell Brook. But at the same time, I do still think that he's going to test Terence Crawford early on. Shawn Porter is a fast starter, in my opinion, and I think that it's going to be fireworks early. He's gonna test Shawn Porter's chin, and yes, Shawn Porter has one of the best chins in boxing. He's one of the most durable fighters in boxing. But on the flip side to all that experience, that's wear and tear on that body. You know what I mean? At some point, I feel like that's going to catch up to Shawn. Shawn is 33, 34. I think he's 34. I think both of these guys are 34. And Shawn has been in some wars, like I said. So Terence Crawford is a fresh 34, in my opinion. Shawn is like on the downside of 30. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he's on his way out, but I think Terence is still at his peak. Whereas Shawn, I think he's going down from his peak, if that makes sense. Both guys haven't been as active over the past couple years. Yes, they fight, but they hasn't been that active. So that's going to be interesting to see early on. But yeah, man, I think that this is going to be a hell of a fight, and I think that this is going to be fight of the year. But I think that Terence Crawford ultimately will win this fight 8 rounds to 4 with a knockdown in the fight. I think that Shawn's I think both fighters gonna hurt each other, or at least stun each other. And I think we're gonna get everything we want. Like I said, I think they're gonna fight in the center of the ring, at mid-range, on the ropes. I think both fighters will be on the ropes. Shawn allows you to put him on the ropes sometimes, and he likes to pivot out. You know what I mean? And Terence Crawford, he could just literally do everything. That's why I really want to put him at #1 pound for pound. But you know, because of the resume, I mean, you do have to factor all of that in. But I just think, like he said it himself, there's nobody that you can say in boxing that can do something that Terence Crawford can't do. But you can say that about Terence Crawford and every other fighter. He can do things that every other fighter can't do. You know what I mean? So I just think that's what it boils down to. I'm so excited for this fight, man. I'm so excited for this fight. They say Errol Spence gonna be in the crowd, ringside. I hope we get an interview before the fight, after the fight, and it's time, man. It's time for him and Terence Crawford to you know, mix it up. So I don't want Shawn to win because I want to see this Shawn and Errol fight, and also because Terence is one of my favorite fighters. But being objective, Shawn is a live dog. He's a game dog for sure. I think the odds are appropriate. Terence Crawford should be the favorite, but Shawn Porter is Shawn Porter. So yeah, I think I pretty much touched on everything. I had a couple of notes that I had on the side of the things I wanted to touch on, and I think that I pretty much touched on everything. But Shawn Porter, if he loses this fight, where does he go from here? That's why I think that this fight is so big too, because both guys have something to prove. Like I say, Shawn Porter, if he was to get this fight, this is really solidify his career. And for Terence Crawford, this is like a I told you so moment for him, you know? But if he was to lose, this is like a I told you so moment for the fans, for the Errol fans, for the fans that just don't like Terence Crawford in general, and then just for the public, for the boxing public. But this is just everything I wanted. If I couldn't get Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, this is the fight I wanted. This is everything I wanted, man. So that's pretty much all I got to say. I'll be pretty much talking in circles. Terence Crawford, I got him winning 8 rounds to 4 with a knockdown. And yeah, that's what it is, man. It's RocSports. I'm checking out. All of my boxing, NFL, and NBA fans, like, share, and subscribe, man. Keep coming back. I'm going to be dropping more content.